Hello and welcome to the Brutal Iron Gym podcast, where our goal is to cut through the BS and deliver the brutal truth about topics related to health and happiness. So today's topic was requested by a listener, so thank you for chiming in, and it was in regards to skin health. So the listener had been heard in one of our past podcasts that we talked about as you lose body fat, your skin is going to kind of like suction down to what is underneath it. So previously, if it's been muscle and fat, and then you lose some fat, the skin will kind of tighten down to what muscle would be there. Now, what happens if you don't have any muscle? So that was kind of what we had talked about in the past podcast, was if you want to have nice curves and shapes, so if you're expecting like your thighs to be nice and rounded, shoulders to be nice and rounded, and on like your butt to be nice and rounded when you diet down, there has to be muscle there to make that rounded appearance. So this person commented that they understood that, and it kind of made sense to them, and they had noticed that when they would lose weight, their butt would sag. And they asked about any kind of tips that we might be able to give to help with loose skin. And the first tip is to build muscle underneath the skin that you want to tighten, but that takes a while. Okay, that takes a long process. And this listener actually came into the gym and we did a training session based on how to build their glutes better. So we did a full workout showing them what were the best exercises for their body type and how to get the best exercises to maximally load the tissue to get the best shape change for their efforts. So, in conjunction with that, I told her that I would make a podcast discussing some of the nutritional concerns with tightening skin. So we know that if we want our skin to tighten down and have nice curves to it, there has to be the muscles under there to make the curves. But then also, how do you help your skin health so that way it stays firm and kind of has the best chance of looking its best? Now, I will say that there's some limitations to what you can do against Mother Nature and Father Time. So our evil parents. But your skin is going to get loose as you age. It's going to be less elastic. It's going to have a little more sag to it. Yes, that is miserable. And me being a 35-year-old male, I do not fully comprehend the misery that has to feel when you look in the mirror and things are inches below where they used to be. So maybe Father Time will get a hold of me here soon, and I will feel your pain. Hopefully I don't, but it's probably coming my way anyhow. So what can we do about it? Is we can take some steps. We can do what we can control to the best of our abilities, and then let the rest be the rest. But if you know that you're controlling everything you can control, that'll help alleviate some of the concern about it, or at least you'll feel content in the sense that you are putting action towards it. Okay, so the first thing we want to look at is fluid intake, water intake. Now, I do not have an enormous amount of science, or really like any science to quote, about what I'm about to say. However, I've seen it with 1,000+ clients in over 17 years of personal training. And I have an extensive background working with people for dieting for health reasons and also aesthetic competitions, to where they lose an enormous amount of fat, and their hope is that their skin tightens down to their muscles. And one of the components we always run into is that fluid intake, for the best body response, it kind of refers to non-carbonated fluid. So that would be like water versus like soda. So I don't have the science as to why like diet soda doesn't have the same effect on skin as compared to water, because both would have, no calories. Yes, diet soda has an enormous amount of like junk in it, so chemicals and whatnot. But I can't explain to you the science behind why, drinking a gallon of water a day makes you look better than drinking a gallon of diet soda. So there has something to do with chemicals, I'm sure, and the way in which our body processes it all. But I don't have the actual hard science for that. So you'll just have to either trust me or not trust me. So if you think to yourself, okay, I do get a lot of fluid in, but most of your fluid comes from diet sodas, that doesn't count. Okay? You need to get water. Now, most people I run into actually don't like water. I know that sounds insane, but I am one of those people. I do not like the taste of water. I think it just tastes weird. It tastes like the plastic container it came in, or it tastes, I don't know, minerally, or like, I don't know, it just doesn't taste good. So I've had people say it tastes like nothing, and they're like, that's what they'll say to me, like, what do you mean? How do you not like water? It doesn't even taste like anything. And I said, it tastes like something, and it tastes like something I don't like. So I'm not a big fan of water. I do drink it, when I'm super thirsty and whatnot. But I tend to drink a lot of milk throughout the day. However, that's not going to help you guys. But I do use those sweeteners. I think it's like Mayo sweeteners, and then there's the cheap versions. Those little like calorie-free squirt bottles that you can squirt the flavor into the water. And I've used those before, and they work really well. And even when people are on diets, they tend to work well in terms of still tightening down their skin. So don't squirt the entire damn container into one bottle. So use it sparingly, use it like quote-unquote to taste. You can also chop up fruit, like oranges, limes, strawberries, stuff like that, and put it in water, and then try to drink the water out of there without eating all the fruit. But there are some ways to make water taste better. So try those, and try to get in. There are formulas out the wazoo for water intake, but generally about 2 liters a day, or about a half a gallon, somewhere around there, is going to be a pretty good amount for most people. So I have had clients before who struggle to drink 24 ounces of water in a day, and that is not healthy. Absolutely not healthy. So our body uses water in all of its processes. Okay? And water makes up an enormous amount of volume and size in like our muscle cells, and it helps us with digestion, it helps us with metabolism, helps with energy. So if you're low in water and you're working out really hard and you expect your body to make changes, what the hell? That's like trying to run a car without gasoline. How is your body going to make all these adaptive process changes when it doesn't have the water that it requires for all of those changes? So water is kind of like a fuel source, along with like calories from our food, on how our body gets stuff done. Okay, so if you want to build muscle, you have to drink water, because your body needs water to get that process done. So there's actually one of my clients specifically I'm thinking of. I'm not going to name you out loud, but you better be listening to this, and you better start drinking water. So her and I have been struggling, well, not struggling, we've been wanting to build more muscle. And we've increased our food, we've increased the intensity of our training, and the effects are coming for sure, but they probably would come even faster if she would drink more water. So you know who I'm talking about, so start drinking more water. We actually have it as a goal for her. So there's a little tip for everybody else, is we have adherence tracking that she shows me every week when we meet. So it's like, you put a check or an X for good meals versus bad meals, or leave a space blank if you didn't get a meal. So we talked about in the past our smiley face charts, where like typically we do a smiley face for a good meal, a frowny face for a bad meal, and blank for a missed meal. So she tracks that. She also tracks her workouts per week that she's supposed to get. And again, check mark a smiley face if she gets it, X or like a frowny face if she misses it. And then we actually added water to this because she needs the motivation and something to help her track her water intake. So you can do that if you're struggling with water, is make it a trackable feature. Like do something every day to where you say good day or bad day, and then you have to see that accumulate over time on bad days, and you'll hopefully not like seeing so many bad days, and you'll do a better job of it. And that way you also don't lie to yourself and say, yeah, I do it for the most part. Then all of a sudden you look over the last week and realize that you're only getting like 2 of 7 days. So that is not good. So that's something you can do, is you can try to track your adherence to water intake. That'll help. So again, we said about 2 liters or a half a gallon a day is a good base to kind of start from. You definitely want to drink more than that if you're more active, and you want to drink more than that if you have more muscle tissue to you. So again, muscle tissue requires water to function and feel well. So I've actually had quite a few muscle tears related to dehydration. So that's definitely something to be attentive to if you're an athlete and or you'd perform aggressive type training like strongman, powerlifting, stuff like that. So it's super duper important. That's the best thing for skin health. So out of everything we're going to say out of this entire podcast, your water intake, non-carbonated fluid intake, is number one, the best bang for your buck. Okay, so the more hydrated your skin stays, the better it can keep up with improvements, repairs, and its overall health. So, and it'll also make it feel better too, so you have softer skin when you're more hydrated. So that's a big, big, big thing, okay? Second thing we want to look at that has the biggest impact as well is protein intake. So, too often, if you noticed, I haven't said anything about creams or supplements or anything, or minerals or vitamins or anything like that. The two biggest things are fluid intake and protein. And that's actually what most, and if you're listening to this about skin health, you're probably a female. There are 100% guys that paying attention. Your skin is good. We have skin too, males, so we do need to pay attention to it as well. And that becomes a little more important when guys are getting ready for aesthetic-based shows. So bodybuilding, men's physique, classic physique, stuff like that. However, every guy, you should pay attention to your skin. So, but this is more specific towards females. And in general, most females have are more likely to miss their daily protein requirements than males are. Okay? So you want to make sure you're eating enough protein. How much is enough protein? Go listen to podcast number 33 titled, How Much Protein Do I Need? And that'll tell you the goods and the bads about protein and what types and varieties and how much you should have. So in general, if you lift weights, I'd say 2 to 3 times a week minimum, you want to have about 0.8 to 1 gram per pound of body weight. So if I weigh 150 pounds, I would have whatever the hell 0.8 of that is. So let's see, what would that be, 120? So I'd have 120 to 150 grams of protein a day. And there are a lot of females I know that struggle to even get 100 grams of protein a day. So you want to have 0.8 to 1 gram per pound of body weight if you're lifting weights a few times a week. And if you're lifting weights more often than that, you need to probably have more. So around that gram per pound of body weight, or maybe even a smidge over. But usually 1 gram per pound of body weight is pretty good for most people if they're physically active and actually tearing up their muscle through physical activity. So if somebody doesn't lift weights, they can probably get away with 0.6 to 0.8 and still be totally fine. But if you want skin to look good and you want to feel good and be lean and mean and be all the good looking stuff, you probably should be lifting weights as well, okay? So that's the idea of how much protein you should have. So if you're physically active with weights, about 0.8 to 1 gram per pound. But still listen to podcast number 33. It gives you all the reasons why, and it helps solidify the importance of this. Because what I really fear for this podcast is that people will listen and they'll hear like our top 5 tips and they'll be like, oh yeah, I'm doing, number 1, 3, and 5. No, do all 5. Why the hell would you only do some of them? Do all 5. So make sure you get more protein intake in, okay? So in podcast number 3 talks about what are the protein foods, how you can get more in, so that way I don't have to go into a 20-minute excerpt into this podcast when we still have other things to discuss. So protein intake is extremely important for skin. It helps heal and repair skin. It helps grow new skin cells. So every single day, all day, our skin is dying off and falling off of us, and our body is reproducing new skin cells. If you do not have adequate protein intake, it cannot adequately produce healthy, soft, supple like cells. So you have to have enough protein so your body can do that well. So I have seen this firsthand many times, dozens if not hundreds, but times where a male or female will increase their protein intake and then report back to me that their skin feels softer. And that wouldn't even have been why we had done it. We were just doing it for a healthy lifestyle. So I've had tons of men and women get ready for contests where their protein intake got up, their fluid intake went up, and again, their skin got softer in the process. So I've had women tons of times where, like, during the process of, like, a competition prep, they'll say, like, oh, my boyfriend said my skin was getting a lot softer and, like, that I was, like, looking better and da-da-da-da-da. So it's come up quite often, the importance and the effect that adequate protein intake has on skin. Okay? So those are the big things. Those are the 2 that I'd recommend you absolutely get right because they have a little more effect than the rest of this list. So is make sure you have adequate water intake. And we said that's about 2 liters to a half a gallon a day or more, preferably more. And then protein intake would be, again, 0.8 to 1 gram per pound of body weight. Listen to podcast number 33 to get more details about that. Now, the next thing we have on the list is vitamins and minerals, like supplements specific for skin health. So there are companies out there who make specific for skin and nail health. And I've used these in the past for women coming out of eating disorders, so anorexia and bulimia, because usually they're very malnutritioned. and their skin and nails are kind of shit, and so is their hair. So they can take these kind of supplements to help kind of rebuild those structures as they're struggling and working towards increasing their food intake. So sometimes when I get a hold of them and we start working together, they're not able to get up to an adequate protein intake right away because we're battling a lot of emotional issues and a lot of just stuff that gets in the way of getting them up to eating adequate protein immediately. So we put them on a supplement, and that helps the process and gets them back to the road of health. So that way, even if it takes us, a couple of years to get them back up to adequate food intake, it's at least they got a head start towards that stuff. So those supplements are awesome. They do work well. But again, make that in conjunction with protein intake and water intake. Then we have healthy fats. So making sure that your diet has healthy fats in it. An example of this would be unsaturated fats. So oils, avocados, nuts, and you can do a Google search on what unsaturated fats are. And we have a podcast in the past about fats. So I'm actually going to be looking this up while I'm talking. So it is very important that if you have enough healthy fat in your diet, that it will help your skin feel softer, because healthy fats make more supple and soft skin cells, like cell walls. Okay, so it's podcast number 29, titled, If I Eat Fat, Will I Get Fat? So podcast number 29 is what you'd want to look for the fat information, fat intake information. So, and again, the reason why is it helps make softer, supple cells, and the cell walls are more resilient to breaking and cracking, and you can have just softer, healthier skin. So, and again, in podcast number 29, when it talks about what are the right types of fats and the right amounts. So generally, you're going to look for unsaturated fats. Saturated fats are actually still good for your diet. They still help with like hormone production and things like that. So you should still have saturated fats in your diet. But generally, they recommend about 2/3 to 1/3. So 2/3 saturated fats for every 1/3 saturated fat. Now, if you're not that diligent with your nutrition to figure out, your macronutrients down to the thirds of subcategories, just make sure you have things. Go listen to podcast number 29, and make sure you have some things in your diet, everyday diet, to have the unsaturated fats in it, and make sure you have some things in your diet to have the saturated fats. So as long as you're getting a little bit of both, you're probably doing okay. Now, if you want to get more nitpicky and get down to those percentages, that is the recommended percentages. So 2/3, 66%, should come from unsaturated fats, and 1/3, about 33%, should come from saturated fats. Cool. So that helps a ton, just like the protein does, to just make sure that your body is fueled with the components of healthy skin. So if we want our body to have healthy skin, we have to give it the things that make healthy skin. Okay? Then the last thing we have is just a couple things to avoid. And these are common sense, but I wanted to add them just because they are part of this topic. Is avoid fried foods. So fried foods would be like saturated fats, but they're also just charred up, like messed up nutrients. So if you eat things in their natural state, they're better absorbed into our body. When you eat things in like unnatural states, it's just kind of harder for our body to process that stuff sometimes, and we don't get the same health benefit out of it. So you want to avoid fried foods, and that's also shown for avoiding like oily skin, acne issues, and stuff like that messes up with the feeling of soft, healthy skin. And you want to avoid cigarette smoke, so that has a shit ton of toxins and crap in it that is not good for your skin or good for the rest of your body. And then avoid excessive sun exposure. So the sun will dry out your skin cells and definitely make your skin feel harder and harsher than it really should. So those are a couple things to avoid that have like kind of big impacts. So there's a longer list. I'm sure if you Googled, things to avoid for skin health, you'll find a longer list than that. But those are three that I've, firsthand seen changes with clients. So I've had clients who used to lay out in the sun all the time when they were younger, and their skin absolutely is more scaly and coarse than individuals who have not done that, and that's something that will maybe never even change for their life. So I've had people in their 30s and 40s, especially in their 40s, who used to lay out all the time when they were in college or younger when they were in their 20s, and their skin is still kind of scaly and not as soft as they would like. And then I've had a ton of clients who were ex-cigarette smokers, and their skin's pretty junked up too. So those are big things to avoid. Okay, so that's kind of our list. So water intake, make sure you have 2 liters to a half a gallon every day, hopefully more. Protein, go listen to podcast number 33. Make sure you have enough protein so your skin can heal itself and repair and grow the way you want. And again, that's 0.8 to 1 gram per pound of body weight if you lift weights on a regular basis. We have vitamins and mineral supplements specific for skin and nail health. And the reason why I'm saying this is because they'll have the right amounts, the right types of things in it, rather than just a generic, general multivitamin. Cool. Then we got healthy fats. Make sure you eat healthy fats so you can have healthy cell walls. And again, that's podcast number 29 to go listen about how to do so. And then things to avoid: fried food, cigarette smoke, and excessive sun exposure. So, once again, I want to repeat, do not skip any of these 5. Okay, if you want the healthiest skin that you can get, and you're willing to pay, freaking $80 to $100 a month on creams and all this other junk, whenever drinking water is free, eating protein and fats is kind of free because you're already eating food every day, so you just need to make it the right food. So do the things that are free. Do the things that have a bigger effect. So there's no point in, quote-unquote, putting lipstick on a pig. So don't put a bunch of cream on your face when you're not doing the basic stuff right. So I accidentally just called everyone a pig. Sorry about that. But what I meant was make sure you get the basics right before you spend your time and effort and energy on all these crazy extras. So make sure the foundation is there for your correct habits. Okay? So it's kind of amazing in life how when we want something to be better, it often comes down to just doing the basic normal things right. So I am included in this whenever I say that is somehow surprising to us because we get off track sometimes, we get lazy with certain things, and we kind of look for shortcuts and special things when there is no shortcut and there is no special thing. You just got to do the basic things. Okay? Just do the basic things right. So eat healthy, good food, be physically active, drink a lot of water, do things that we would assume everyone would already be doing, but many people don't. Okay? So that's the focus. Hopefully that helps. Put it to work, and like I said, let me know if you ever want to chime in. If anybody ever listens to these podcasts and wants to give some feedback, even if it's, hey, you're full of shit, I didn't think anything you told me worked, send me a message and we'll help maybe figure out why it didn't work. So, but if you do get positive messages, send those as well, because it's motivating and fun to see those things. So thank you for those who do chime in. And thank you for the person who asked this question. Hopefully this topic was helpful and enlightening some. And if you go listen to those extra podcasts, number 33 and 29, you're going to learn even more. Okay? So if you like this information, you can find more from us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, Brutal Iron Gym. Also, if you like the podcast, you can sign up to become a patron of the podcast by donating $10 or more a month. And for your donation, we will send you online programming. So if you want workout, exercise information, we'll send it to you for just $10 a month. We have programs on strength, aesthetics, overall health, working out at home with no equipment if you want to do that thing. Whatever you want, just sign up and then shoot us an email, and we'll send you the program every month. You can sign up directly on the Podbean app. You can send us an email or do a Google search, Become a Patron, Brutal Iron Gym Podcast. Also, if you like the podcast, please share it with family and friends. So the more people we help, the happier the world's going to be. So please, 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 if you like this information, please share it. And also, if you have any questions, feedback, or suggestions, if there's anything you want to learn about, please, please, please reach out to us. This email podcast is for you. So our email is brutaliron@gmail.com. As always, I hope this was helpful, and thank you for listening.